Greetings, this is Angela Blueskies, and I'm so delighted to be here today with my dear friend of many years, Diane Dunn, who I know from the Sacred Valley of Peru. And it's just so wonderful to see you after so many years of being in different places at different times. So I just want to thank you for taking this time this morning to come online and be in conversation.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks, Angela.
My pleasure. Um, so I met Diane when I was first really going to Peru to connect with my teachers there, and I would go and stay for a few weeks to a few months at a time. And I ended up at Diane's retreat center called Pasi Luz. And so I have seen the magic grow there, and I've seen the beauty of Diane's work myself for so many years. Diane is a writer, an inspirational speaker, a teacher, and a healer, and she's been living full time in the Sacred Valley of Peru for many years. Is there anything that you would add to that introduction, Diane?
Oh, well, I think that covers it. I've been in Peru since 2000, so 20 years now.
Amazing.
And it's been wonderful to see how the retreat center has grown. I don't remember the first year that you came, but I started with 4 rooms and then ended up now with 24, and actually retired now, so that other people are now running the retreat center.
I love it. I first came there in 2007. Yeah, 2007. I first came to Peru in 2005, but I didn't find you until 2007 when I actually started staying in the valley. And yes, I think at that point it was maybe 8 rooms. Um, and it was
Yeah,
like a second
because
home to me.
we built the big building with 12 more guest rooms in 2008.
Beautiful. So Diane is the first of many guests that I am bringing here onto the internet to share beautiful, inspiring conversations. And I'm calling this project Two Hands and a Heart. And I have invited amazing people who I have met through my travels and through my work who have done passion as their profession, people who are walking really magical work in the world, people who are inspiring positive change and taking a stand as leaders in this time of transformation that we're living in. And so the breadth of our conversation today and in future weeks um, will involve conversations with people who are real thought leaders and change makers in the world. And it is my hope that through enjoying these conversations, our listeners will be inspired to ask deeper questions in themselves. What am I really here for? How can I be a part of the transformation of this world myself?
Mm,
So
beautiful.
Diane, there's so many directions we could go in today. I'm sure that we could probably have a 24-hour conversation and never stop. But the thing I thought we would begin with today is just a little bit about your journey. And though I've known you for years, I really enjoyed reading about your journey in preparation for our conversation today. So it looks like you went from Ohio, then to New York, and then to South Africa, and eventually ended up in Peru and followed your heart and created wonderful projects in each place. Can you share with us a bit more about your journey?
Well, I was thinking like how to what what ties all those things together. And I would say that the a very important moment in my life was when I was about 3 years old. We were living in Cincinnati, Ohio at the time, and I was in my backyard by myself on my swing. There was woods all around, and it was spring, and new life was growing, and I was swinging higher, higher, higher into the sky. And I felt this connection, this extraordinary connection with divine source, especially through the nature and the birds singing and everything growing, and feeling this incredible sense of the beauty of the creation and God, and that I was part of that. And it's something I would say even though I had a lot of, you know, stuff growing up and and struggles, there was always that sense that I was connected with God in that way, and that I understood something from inside myself that was different than what people on the outside were telling me.
Mm.
And maybe you know, we moved to New York when I was 12, and um, I was married young and got divorced after a few years, and went to New York City to pursue my acting career. And I started meditating in, it was like, I don't know, in the mid 80s, when a lot of things in my life were falling apart. I had just closed down my theater company, and and started to listen, uh, which is really what I think the most important part of meditating is, just tuning in to yourself and to the divine source. And got this message about going to theological seminary, which in it, it was so bizarre in a certain way, because I was such a religious skeptic. And then at the same time, it just felt so right to do. And it was a academic master's program. It was 3 years. So it I was in my mid 30s. I thought, wow, I can't go back to school. But anyway, I went because I felt this inner knowing to do it. And it was an extraordinary experience, like a really, really big awakening on social justice levels, as well as spiritual levels. And it was during that time that I had the opportunity to go to South Africa, just after Nelson Mandela was free from prison and South Africa was in this big transition. And I initially went just for 2 months. And again, it was like, you know, this is what I'm thinking even right now, for everything that's going on now, that there's so many serendipitous moments in our life that we end up somewhere that we don't really know, like, why did I get this opportunity to be here at at whatever moment in time? And that for me is really why, what led me to want to keep going back to South Africa. And then I ran a community outreach program for homeless and unemployed folks from a church in the inner city of Johannesburg. And I was just back there in November this year,
Mm.
reconnecting with people that I worked with 20, gosh, more than 25, 27 years ago. And still feeling that connection with them, and with being in South Africa. So I do believe that we have, you know, uh, maybe I'm just lucky. I asked my one of the shaman where I was going to go and what I was going to do next, and he shared with me a vision that he had of a spiritual center in the Sacred Valley, where people from all over the world and all different religions and faith traditions could gather together. And I knew that I was part of that vision, and I moved there to help create it.
Wow. How, like, did you just move right away? Did you just drop everything and go? Did it take some time?
Um, it was January of '99 when he shared that vision with me, and in December '99 I moved to Peru.
Wow. That's amazing. What an incredible journey. I am just blown away. Um, and so how did you begin to realize that vision? Like, how did you
Well,
just move to another country and say, healing center?
that's the part that's so funny, because of course I didn't really think that I'd be building it myself, and but I had a mentor friend in New York who always said, you know, if you have some crazy idea, you should just start doing it. So when the sort of big ideas of gathering people together and stuff weren't happening, I just thought, okay, I'm gonna just buy a little piece of land in Pisac and I'm gonna make my own house, and then we'll, we were still bringing people from South Africa for initiations, and I was still working with my teachers, but I didn't really intend for to be building the place there myself. But it just, I kept getting messages like that, like build the extra rooms first. And then I built those first 4 rooms. And then the Lonely Planet guide woman came and she wrote about my place. And because in those days there wasn't really internet or websites or things. And
Yeah.
I got in the guidebook, and then people started coming, and then my parents gave me and my brothers some money when they sold their house, and so I used that money to buy more land and build more rooms, and it was just like this unfolding that happened in a way that I wouldn't have imagined.
Wow.
But and at the same time, independent travel was coming in and more people were coming to Peru, and it was just all again like being in the right place at the right time. And 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 the how of that, I would say, is mostly, I say to people, you just have to say yes. You have to listen. You have to listen to the messages that you're getting from the universe, but you also have to say yes, even if they seem crazy. And of course, I didn't speak any Spanish when I came to Peru. I didn't know anyone in Cusco because neither of my teachers lived in Cusco. One of them was in Lima and the other one in Arequipa. And and it was just like, the willingness to do that. And I I mean, I'm happy that I have that capacity in my life because it's really brought me to such wonderful, beautiful places.
Oh, I love it. That resonates with me so much because a lot of my life has followed the similar kind of path. And um, as I've gotten older, there's the part of me that wants to listen, but is also wanting me to be practical. But all of the good things that have come to me in my life come because I got a message that was clear, and I didn't know how to do that, but I just said yes to it because it seemed like it was almost like a command from spirit. Um, in 2003, I found out about the Camino de Santiago path in Spain. And I was like, I'm a round woman. I've always been a round woman. And I was not somebody who had ever been camping or on more than a day hike, even. Like backpacking was foreign. And I read the first pages of Shirley MacLaine's book, The Camino. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do that. And then, of course, reality sets in. You're like, are you serious? You could walk 5 miles, not 500 miles. But I said, nope, nope, I have to do this. And in the summer of 2004, I did. I walked the entire thing. And as I look at the
Mm.
trajectory of my life now, I know that taking that yes started off like it was like a chain reaction that helped me to be able to get all the way to Peru the first time and has guided my entire life in amazing ways. So I appreciate that so much. Um,
Yes, and I think, the difference, Angela, is that when we understand something from our heart and not our mind, then we're like, yeah, I'm there. It's only, and then we start to go into the head, the mind, which is so much smaller capacity, and, narrows everything down and tries to, that we get freaked out. And I think that that's also partly what's happening now with everybody's response to the coronavirus. If we respond from our heart and not from our mind that's in flight fight mode to really working on survival as opposed to living, And it's so important now more than ever to really stay in tune with what we feel inside and what our connection is with divine source, and to stay out of the mind, which takes us down many rabbit holes.
Totally. As I've wanted to stay in touch with what's happening in the world with this situation, and because I live in a really remote place and don't encounter people or really anything other than the forest every day, um, I'll check in online and I'll go to social media. And I started to realize in the last few days that when I go online, I start feeling sick
Yeah.
and overwhelmed within less than 5 minutes, because I am just energetically picking up on all of that. And that doesn't do me any good. That doesn't do anybody any good. And yet, that's where we go when we give way to the fear mind and let
Yeah.
it run rampant.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful you came up with this idea to,
Thank you.
to focus on what we really can do on a whole nother level,
Yeah.
and to
Um,
keep our vibration high, because if we don't do that, then we're going to really sink.
yeah. I can't remember who said it. I'm going to look this up later. But one of my favorite quotes, and I may butcher this because I'm terrible at quoting exactly, but um, it was something that I had on my desk for a long time. Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would end, today I will still plant my apple tree.
Mm,
And that lives in my heart. It's like it doesn't ultimately matter like what happens tomorrow if we're able to be true to ourselves and to the bigger vision right now in this day. Then we are able to have more courage to take things one step at a time
mm,
and to move through whatever shows up in a courageous and heart connected way.
yeah, amen to that.
So I really enjoyed looking around your website. For people who I already know, I don't often do that because I'm like, oh, I know Diane. But I really enjoyed reading some of your writing there, and so I was really enjoying this particular blog that you had written where you talk about the importance of seeing challenges as opportunities.
Mm.
And I would love to hear about one such challenge in your life and how navigating that challenge was transformative for you personally.
Yes, well, it's so interesting because where I am stuck at the moment, I'm in the States, in Florida, at my brother's house, waiting for Peru to open its borders. But this is the place where I was when I'd say one of the most challenging circumstances happened for me. Um, I met my Swedish husband in 2007 when he came to Peru for a visit, and we lived and ran the center in Peru. We got married a year after we met, and then 4 years after we met, we came up here to Florida for my mom's 90th birthday party. And the day after we arrived, in the morning, he said, "I'm having trouble breathing," and then he passed out. And it turned out that he had a blood clot in his lung. But the dog, even the ambulance, when they came, they didn't know what was going on. They thought maybe he'd had a heart attack. He coded 6 times in the emergency room. They kept bringing him back, but he was deprived of a lot of oxygen. And he was in the ICU for 12 days. And I really, in a way, I feel very blessed for those 12 days, because if really he had died so suddenly before, I think I would have just been in a state of shock. But going to the hospital every day for those 12 days, and he was in a semi-coma, so he could blink his eyes as a way of communicating with me, but there was nothing else in his body that was moving. And although his organs were recovering, they told me that really the problem was the oxygen deprivation to the brain. So as time went on, we needed to make some decisions, and I asked him if he wanted me to take him off the the life support, and he confirmed that, and I said that I would help him to cross over.
Mm.
And it actually was one of the most extraordinarily beautiful experiences that I've ever had. Um, and and during that time, I was so in my heart that I was able to really be present with him and the connection with him, and to also feel so much love and support that was all around me. And because I I was there, it enabled me to really, I think it was the most unconditionally loving thing that I've ever done in my life,
Mm.
was helping him to cross over. And it was such a beautiful experience. I Yeah, I know maybe for people who haven't been in that situation, or maybe even people that have, might find that extraordinary, but I felt so blessed to be able to do that. And I ended up using the same ceremony that we used when we got married as the ceremony. And I was so kind of, I fell out of the moment the day before, and I was really regretting not having all my friends there or people that I knew, and instead just I was with my brother and his wife, who were lovely to me and are now in this crisis also being so lovely to me. But we've never in our lives really resonated on the same kind of level. And yet I was able in the moment to remember that everything we need, wherever we are, in whatever situation, the universe gives us. And when I could trust that again, it was like that. It was like everything was there. And it was such an amazing experience. And I think that for me now, being back here in this moment, in the same kind of way, in fact, think we're getting close to day 12. Uh, and yesterday, I woke up in, I don't know why, like in a pissy mood and sad that I wasn't in Peru and how was I going to get there, and really like, and I did my yoga and then my meditation, and I remembered to smile. I remembered being here in 2011, and remembering that wherever we find ourselves, there's opportunity to turn challenges into beautiful, amazing experiences.
Mm. What an amazing story. I I really honor you for the grace and wisdom with which you navigated that incredibly challenging time. And, um, you know, death is such a profound teacher if we allow
Wow.
ourselves to be cracked open by it. Um, I definitely had that experience when my father died. And
Mm.
I was actually in Peru, in Deeta, deep in the jungle. And
Yeah.
somehow the call got through that he had died suddenly. And the whole process from leaving the Deeta and the odyssey of getting back to the States, and then navigating the uncertainty with my family, uh, and my own family is much like what you've expressed, where we're very divided on opposite sides of the world, in terms of our belief structures. Um, one of the most shattering experiences of my entire life, but also like because I'd already been walking a path that reminded me, keep your eyes open, feel everything, and also see the bigger picture of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all that really got me through it. Um, so I just thank you so much for sharing that incredibly beautiful experience.
Yeah,
Um,
and I felt him around with me for, a good year afterwards, helped me raise my vibration to an extent, like a whole nother level of understanding the world and what's important and what falls away. And I would say at this particular time when so many people are in different levels of crisis and in places that perhaps they'd rather not be stuck in, um, to really know that there's a whole nother level that we can go to if we get out of the mind and into the heart.
And that really reminds me of what I was reading in your writing, where you're talking about prerequisites to see challenges as opportunities. So these are specific directions that you can invite into your life that help to initiate seeing life's challenges as opportunities. And the first one is heal your wounds, release your shit. Can you say a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
one of my favorites. Um, uh, I think one of the things that's the most important, and I heard somebody that did a channeling I was listening to this week, was talking about what when things like this happen or any challenging situation happens, it's most likely going to trigger whatever your primary wounds are if they have not yet been healed. And and that's an opportunity in itself to recognize that, and like you were saying, to be able to see things from a broader perspective. And you got to let it go, because just like in your own body, if you get clogged up with stuff, you can't let in anything new. So really, um, recognizing when we're responding from a very old childhood um, pattern, then we can release that, and then so many other perspectives are can be opened.
So, what is an example of a good way to release your shit?
Well, I think from your time in Peru,
Uh,
or a lot of the work that and the teaching that I do is working with the elements, doing meditations and exercises with the four elements. And Pachamama, Mother Earth, is so wonderful to release your shit to, because for her, it's fertilizer. And really, she loves that heavy energy. Where I live, that's how we fertilize the ground out there. Not with my own shit, but with bono, which is animal manure. Quechua word in Peru is used. It's aini, which is giving. As we give, we receive, and as we receive, we give. So when we give all that heavy energy to Pachamama, to our mother, who feeds on it and gives us back new life from that, it's an exchange, and it's a beautiful exchange. And it doesn't help us at all to hold on to it. So in whatever way, sitting on the ground, even your feet on the ground in a high-rise apartment, you can connect with that Mother Earth and give her your heavy energy.
that's beautiful. It's one of my favorite practices as well. And here on our land, on the top of this mountain in West Virginia in the US, um, we built a medicine wheel in the forest. And it's very close to the house so that we can access it regularly. And it's one of the practices that we engage in regularly ourselves, um, to go and walk the medicine wheel when it's nice weather, to do it that barefoot and to really
Mm,
make
yeah,
offerings there and to pray for not only protection but to be freed of the things that keep us stuck.
yeah,
Um, Thank you so much. And
yeah,
when Helen and I received Moon IQ rights with you, I appreciated so much the exercise that you guided our group in, where we just laid down on the ground and spoke our what's on our heart to
yeah.
Pachamama, and then to listen to what she had to give to us. And that's a practice that we share with our own students all the time now. So Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
um, so the second of these prerequisites is open your heart, and you've already spoken so much about that. But I wonder if you might share with us a kind of guidepost for how one might connect with their heart at a time like this, where there's a whole lot of crisis and chaos and fear.
Yeah, I think it's more about noticing when you're in your, when you're spinning things in your mind, to really sit still. Or like yesterday, I think I was on the phone for 45 minutes to JetBlue trying to find out about my flight, and then I got disconnected, and then somebody else was trying to call, and like I could feel my own anxiety rising, and those are the moments that you can say, okay, gonna let that go for now, or to choose what's the easiest. That's another thing. Like, rather than to try to figure out what do I have to do, it's like, no, just quiet yourself. Meditation, in my opinion, is the main thing for how you do that. And it doesn't matter what kind of meditation you do, or maybe you can just call it sitting quietly, starting your day, tuning in to what's on your mind and moving it into your heart.
Hmm. And so finally, your third prerequisite is accept what is. And I think for a lot of people, this is maybe the hardest step, because when we see things, not only in times of crisis like this, things that are out of our control, but when we see things surrounding us in the world that are so screwed up, it's hard to just accept what is. Um, can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, and I think I'm not saying that we shouldn't have intentions and desires for things to be different. I received a notice about a meditation and a group global meditation to shift things from where they are. But there are some things that if you want to be in ease with your own situation, you have to accept that it's like that. If I hadn't, if I hadn't accepted that Krister was going to die, or even when he said, I want you to let me go, and I said, okay, I'll help you. If I hadn't accepted that, or even any of those 12 days that I was in that hospital yelling at the doctors, or doing something other than accepting that he was there and that I wanted to be there with him, then I would have missed that opportunity. And right now, where I find myself here again and wishing that I was somewhere else, to keep reminding myself that I'm here. And until the borders open, or until planes fly, or whatever the circumstances are, to know that by accepting what is, then I can be open to whatever the opportunities are right here, right now. If I'm not accepting that, then I'm going to miss what's going on right now.
Yeah. I think even in the best of times in our lives, we can often be so focused toward the future and the next thing and what we want to be even better in the next moments or the next years. Like that, that's how our lives can go by. And I know that, again, with the death of my father, um, I was like rattled into presence in such a way that I could literally feel like every moment is dying like that. And if I am constantly focusing my attention on something else other than what's right in front of me, even when what's right in front of me may be uncomfortable or frustrating, like I'll miss my entire life. And
Mm.
those moments, those boring moments, those irritating moments, I try to remind myself to like stop, notice what's happening right now, and then to listen more deeply if I'm supposed to do something. But yeah, such an important message that you're
Mm.
sharing here. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, with our world facing so many challenges like climate change and war, social and economic instability, and now this global pandemic, it seems that the more we are able to adapt to change, the more readily we will be able to navigate these challenges with wisdom and grace. In your own life, what is most supportive in these times?
Well, I think one really easy technique that I've just started developing is to smile
Mm.
when you're feeling like the heaviness of everything, because it really does, it changes your physiology. Um, so smile or laugh is helpful, keeping things in perspective. And of course, to be in the present. The more that we're in the present, the more the only, really the only thing that we control is our own response to whatever it is that's happening around. And to know that we really are in control of that response, and that it's not the outside uh, events that are controlling our response, that can also be a very empowering thing. I wanted
Mm.
to close today by sharing a part of a poem, a Hafiz poem. In addition to the wedding ceremony, we used it when in the ceremony to help Krista cross over. And I think it's also very apropos for what we're going through right now. And to remember this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. Wherever your eyes and arms and heart can move against the earth and sky, the beloved has bowed there. Our beloved has bowed there, knowing you were coming.
Mm. Beautiful. Diane, my amazing sister, I want to thank you so much for taking this time today to join me in conversation. It's been a true pleasure for me. And I hope that for our listeners, this conversation will be inspiring and also offer some resources in finding refuge in this time, and also really being able to show up for what is needed most, whatever that may be. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Angela. It was lovely.